it destroyed me. It destroyed conversations for me for years. I had gotten so used to like getting high off of a conversation with someone. So maybe you have had this experience too where, I'm not talking about like being on the phone for 45 minutes. I'm not talking about being on the phone for an hour. These two people can get off work, call each other, and then be like, oh my God, I actually have to get off the phone now because it's 6:30 and I have to get ready for work. Like, this is how long their conversation can be. And it flows and it's easy and it's interesting. Hi, hello guys. My name is Mia Marie, and in honor of Halloween, I wanted to talk about one of the spookiest aspects in synastry, and it is Mercury Conjunct Pluto. Now, I know many of you are like, how is this relevant, important, interesting? When we think about compatibility, people tend to, point you in the direction of Venus or Mars or the moon. And whilst all of those planets serve a specific function, maybe it's because I'm an Aquarius rising, or I would consider myself to be more intellectual, spiritual of a person. I cannot imagine dismissing Mercury. Mercury, when your Mercury doesn't get along with somebody else's chart, it's like you're constantly spending time needing to translate your soul. It's important to understand in terms of intimacy and connection, right? What language are you speaking? Mercury in someone's brain represents the way they perceive the world, how they communicate, what they're focused on, what they are a natural student of, and what they will in time learn to teach the world. It is their natural gifts intellectually. Pluto, on the other hand, is the part of our brain that is like the lie detector and is constantly scanning the environment. And so when the Pluto person meets the Mercury person, it's like, oh, there's a secret here. You're not telling the truth. You are keeping something from the world, and maybe even keeping it from yourself, and I'm going to find it. And you know what? I'm going to plant seeds in the darkest parts of your heart, and flowers are going to blossom, and you're going to thank me for it. That's what Pluto is thinking is going to happen. Gets a lot messier than that. But Pluto brings to the table this obsession and addiction, and of course those things have a negative connotation for a good reason. But without the obsession and the addiction, I wonder if we would be willing to talk about taboo things, if we would be willing to stare at something that's rotting and nasty and gross and really otherwise unattractive in another individual. I think the obsession and addiction serve a purpose, a noble and worthy purpose in these relationships, because it brings that staying power, of like, I'm not going to get distracted on anything or anyone else. And I would say that the Mercury person specifically feels like the Pluto person has their entire, like, you have Pluto's entire attention, and it can be intimidating. One of the things that I would think would come up in this partnership quite early on is like, let's look into each other's eyes for 2 minutes. Don't blink, or just like, don't turn away, because there is this instinctual pull to see into the heart, into the soul of the other person. But you guys are coming from two completely different places. So with the conjunction, it's like you're sitting and you're both looking at the world through the same vantage point, but you have a different emotional reaction. The Mercury person might be, say you guys just look at like, oh God, I really want to choose my words wisely here. You're examining some object. The Mercury person is going to have a more innocent, playful, naive, lighter interpretation. It's not going to be so personally moved by what it is that we're witnessing. The Pluto person feels completely drawn in, locked in. Why did you say that way? Is trying to find meaning in everything that they're witnessing. And so they admire this in each other. Mercury appreciates the wisdom that the Pluto person carries. The Pluto person comes off as powerful and in control and incredibly learned and focused and in control, I would say, in some capacity. And the Pluto person is looking at Mercury like, I wish I could detach like you can. I wish that I could just intellectualize this and learn it without feeling so deeply, without being arrested by the information that I'm receiving. Mercury can often say things in a lighthearted way, or in a way that most other people wouldn't be affected by. But the Pluto person will hear it and be like, why would you say that? Like that Kim Kardashian thing, like, you knew you were going to make me cry, something like that. And Mercury is just like, I did not, like, no one would respond this way. Pluto takes everything that Mercury says to heart. And so there's kind of like a shared jealousy, I think, of the other person. Mercury wishes that they had as much knowledge and control in the relationship as Pluto has, and Pluto looks at Mercury and thinks, I wish I had a little bit more freedom. I wish I could take this less intensely, but I cannot. The Mercury person can feel like they are being studied. At first, Mercury might be like, I want your attention, give me your attention, and they'll definitely get it. This is a couple that when they're on the phone, it's not like, oh, we talked for an hour last night or we talked for 2 hours. This is the couple that's like, I'm calling you when I get off work, and oh shit, the sun is coming up. It's 6:30. I have to get ready for work. Like, we just got lost in time. We just got lost in ideas. So the Mercury person is like, I want your attention. And the Pluto person is like, you cannot handle my undivided attention. And they mean that. They really do mean that it's just this fascination. Mercury person will be studied thoroughly. Why do you think the way that you think? Where did that come from? How does this impact your every decision, your every thought? And there are times where the Mercury person feels a little out of their element, even though we're at a conjunction, because Mercury wants to be light and playful. It just wants to deliver the message and dip. It wants to understand, it wants to translate, and it wants to move. Pluto is like, I'm playing the long game, sweetheart. I want you to sit down and be focused. And it's this real, like, use the archetypes, right? The messenger, imagine the messenger and then Hades. These two people needing to function as one. There's very obvious friction. This is the combination that is not always above mind games. It's like mind games on crack, because Mercury represents the messenger, as we've said, but also it's the trickster of the zodiac. It naturally has authority over Gemini and Virgo. So think about the brains of those individuals, the nervous system of those individuals. And then you pair that with Pluto, which has domain over secrets, subconscious, unconscious, repressed memories. And so everything is around consciousness. Where on the scale are we? We're looking at it all. We're organizing it all. Mercury can get exhausted looking at Pluto. Like, why do we have to take everything so seriously? Can you please just be lighthearted? And Pluto is like, this is just drawing your life. You are enslaved by this thing and you don't want to talk about it all the time. It's like, no, I don't. I want to go outside and play, is what Mercury is saying. So it can be a little intense. This is where it's a little woo-woo. So if you're not into that, first of all, I'm shocked that you're on this page. Secondly, that you've made it this far into the video, but here's the warning. There is a telepathic kind of communication that takes place with this aspect. A telephone cord, you can visualize it going from one person's brain to the other. It's almost like you can easily hear their thoughts, or you have a general idea of what it is that they're moving through because you can hear it. It's like, that wasn't my thought. Why would I be focused on this? For example, years ago, I wasn't in this relationship. We had separated. But I woke up one morning and I was like, I'm going to Tulum. Didn't think twice about it. A decision was made. It was like I was on autopilot. I'm going to Tulum. And then once I was in Tulum, I learned, because my photo shoot, because I was posting photos for my birthday, I learned that this person that I had the connection with was also there on the same date that I was. I guess we had both posted photos on the same day or something like that. I heard about it through a mutual friend. And so phenomena like that could happen. Like your brains, your mental energy draws you to similar spaces. Let's go to the esoteric directive of this. The esoteric directive for the Mercury person is that the Pluto person will point to your psychological weaknesses. If you want to be a spiritual warrior, if you want to be unfuckwithable, you have to overcome this within yourself. You have to open yourself, be vulnerable, and like, let's just move through this nasty stuff together. It's kind of what the Pluto says. It's an authoritative figure in your life who is pointing towards your future, is pointing towards who you could be, your personal power moving, in a forward direction. The Mercury person somehow pulls at the heartstrings of the Pluto person's childhood. And it's just something about the way that they think or they talk or the innocence. It's almost like the Pluto person can see themselves in the Mercury person, and it brings them back to the past. Like there's something for you to retrieve. There's some message that your inner child has and is trying to communicate with you. And many times you'll find that in this relationship, you're talking about shared trauma, about secrets that you feel so terrified to tell anybody, but yet your soul is is speaking faster than your brain can handle, and so you're just spilling. You're being so incredibly honest, and people can look at it and think like, oh, this is a trauma bond. I mean, depending on the level of consciousness and the intentions behind each person, it could be, it could be a trauma bond. It could be something where your shadows dance so well together, or it could be clean. It could be progressive. It could be growth oriented, where we're not intimidated by the territory that we're on. And we're also like accomplishing goals and moving through things because we are learning to trust another human. That's another esoteric directive here, is that in some way, shape, and form, you guys have both been scorned. You guys have both opened yourselves up to somebody, probably parental figures or family figures, or depending on the placements of where this is at, it can even be like society, right? Like culture and society has fucked you over systematically. In other words, we're focused on the restoration of trust in another person was what it seems to be, but really it's trust within ourselves and within our own darkness, getting to know your own shadow, learning through conversation, learning through experience, hiccups, learning through learning through this relationship that the ugliest parts of you are not just to be severed off, are not to be cut off and destroyed. They're to be nourished. You bow to meet these demons in the other person, and then in turn you end up bowing to meet your own, and it's an integration of light and dark. But say, for example, you could have like a very fiery, airy person who doesn't want to do that, and so the universe has brought this Plutonian person to you, like, you really have to learn this lesson, and there's a lot of pushback, there's a lot of discomfort, and it can feel like a mental breakdown. It actually can feel like the fiery, airy person is being destroyed in a way that they're not sure they can recover from, because of what they're seeing, what they think in the other person, but what they're really seeing in themselves. And it stimulates, it catalyzes a period of extreme transformation. You can feel powerless in the dynamic at some points, but after the relationship, or as you move through the relationship, you find that you've been more powerful and in control than ever before. And is there anything else that I have for you? I'm looking at the clock. I have to go trick-or-treating. So this is where I'll stop it. If you have any questions, write them down below. Toodles. Bye.